Howdy, howdy, everyone.
Good
Welcome.
morning.
We are thrilled to be live with you here on the Organizational Health Collective gathering that we've got going here I'm Doug Cothe, the founder of the Organizational Health Collective and also founder of People Smart Group, LLC, consulting group, as well as the Organizational Health Collective is a group of consultants and internal practitioners that seek to come together to grow both in our internal, in our practice of organizational health consulting and also in our collective working together in those practices. And I'm here with my good friend, Terry Wager.
Yeah, I'm Terry Wager, and I am principal consultant of Generator Group. I am also an organizational psychologist. And so I bring a little psychology to, too much psychology to it sometimes.
Yeah, well, hey, it's helpful.
And I'm a member of the Organizational Health Collective. And what are we talking about today, Doug?
Well, for today's conversation, as you saw in the quick little intro video, we've got the question of, wow, you do you. You just need to be happy. All these little memes that are common in our culture today. And we have also got the controversial statement of, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Yes, and there are a lot of stupid things out there these days. And it's funny because some of them make sense, but on the surface. But when you start drilling down into them, there's a lot of bad advice out there.
Yeah,
a lot of bad
there
advice.
Is.
And being one of the people that wrote a book called "Quit Taking Your Own Bad Advice," well, one of the first things I think is we got to really pay attention to what good advice is, what versus what bad advice is. And so I think that's kind of what we're getting into today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have said these words, you do you, or you just need to be happy, or speak your own truth, or those sorts of things, and are sitting there going, well, wait a second here. Why is that a bad thing? Why is that a problem?
Yeah.
Don't we have to be true to ourselves, Terry?
There's a couple of things that I also point out is that's just the way I am, and that's just the way it is. I hear people say those things a lot. And, that's the two biggest lies out there because they keep you stuck and unable to change. If that's just the way I am, how can you change? If that's just the way it is, how can you alter a situation? But both you and I know that when we walk into a business and we start working with people that are open, flexible, interested in making change, then it's not just the way they are, it's the way they ended up showing up, and it's the way they've created the situation for themselves. And so if people are willing to change, they can. So those are the two greatest lies.
Yeah, absolutely. And frankly, honestly, if you're not growing, if you're not continuing to grow in your life, you're going one way or the other. You're either going backward or you're going up and improving and getting better. And so, I mean, it's an ongoing learning and growth reality in our lives. And so, no, I don't want to stay stagnant. I don't want to just be me and stay in that place. I want to continue to learn and grow. And the other piece of that is so hard about that advice is I'm not the center of the world. I'm not the center of truth. I have so many people around me that I need to learn from. I need people to challenge my perspective.
But
I need
Doug,
people to tell me what they see that I don't see. I have blind spots, Terry.
Let me ask you, if I'm not the center of the universe, why if I spin around in a circle, it all comes back to me?
Uh-oh.
The way I see it, right?
Yeah. Well, in a sense, Terry, you are the center of the universe in that everywhere there's a problem, you show up.
Oh, thank you. That's because they call me.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we got to really start looking at, okay, so what does it take to start really dissecting this issue? Where is this coming from?
Yeah. And it's I think there's a response that maybe is a healthy response that comes of being taken advantage of, or people feeling like things are pushed down on them and not having a voice. And so to that, there's a sense in which maybe people are rightly saying, wait a second here, there's no voice. There's no sense in which we're heard or we're listened to, and where good feedback can't be expressed. and in that sense, I think there's a good push of saying, wait a second here, we should be heard. But it goes too far toward the total individualistic, hey, wait, it's got to be all about me now. And so the pendulum just swings from one end of, hey, it's all about everyone but me, to, hey, it's all about me.
Right. And one of the things that I kind of notice with either of those is there's lacking an awareness of self. There's awareness of others where we're lacking that. And honestly, there's a lack of humility.
Yeah, very much so.
And why I say that is because when we think the world centers around us, or I'm the only one involved in this decision, we're not taking into account that other people exist. We're not taking into account that other people are affected. And I was really good at this when I was younger. Is I told myself this idea that I'm the only one affected, so it really doesn't matter if I talk to other people about my decision.
Yeah.
And I see decision makers do that all the time. I'm the most affected, or this is really on my shoulders, so I got to do this. And those are all really great excuses to not open myself, or for them to not open themselves to either ridicule, criticism, fear of being wrong, or not being able to take the action that they decided they want to take.
Yeah.
As a result, errors happen a lot.
Yep. That's well said. And I think it's easy. Oftentimes you hear those statements. And I think in our current culture, we see there's the older generation has probably moved up into those leadership roles. And we've got the younger generation that maybe uses more of these memes and more of these statements than the older generation might. And so it's easy for the older generation to hear what we began with and go, yeah, these employees, these younger people, and think it's them. But it's not just them, is it? It's just stated differently. And there's plenty of leaders who it's like, hey, this it falls on my shoulders. It's up to me. It's on me. Or, hey, I'm the one with the most risk in the game here because I own the business, or because I'm the leader and it's my head on the chopping block. And so it all falls to me. So I'm the one with the risk. So I'm going to make the decision.
I have a client who hired me to start helping him with this in a trusted advisory capacity. And then he went out and started getting other help and not running any of it by me. And it's funny because I didn't experience this when I first started working with him, but that's some of the things that the other people that were working with him says. He kind of makes decisions, and he says he owns the company, or he has the most stake in it. And so he makes these decisions. And the fact of the matter is I didn't see it. I was waiting for it, because usually people don't say stuff like that without. And so, I mean, okay, this could happen. But he went out and spent, $80,000 after he's already in debt and already having different problems in the business is. But he convinced himself that he needs to go and do that without talking to me, without talking through it, without having a strategic game plan around how to go forward.
Yeah.
And I come back in within a couple of days of talking to him, and he's hired another group of people that do the same thing I do. And so it's like, okay, so you just pay double for what's going on.
You're duplicating what we're doing here.
Duplicating research, but not even duplicating as much as now you have hired two people to do the same kind of job, and now we can work together, and that's right. What we're doing. But it's like, where do the boundaries end, and how can that really be as successful as you want it to be? And you didn't take into account when you made the deal, and hey, they're going to help me double my money or whatever. Great, they're going to help you double your money, but you didn't ask anything about what their services are versus my services. You didn't ask about how we could do what they're doing. You didn't look or investigate. And that's kind of it. It starts from, well, it's my company and it's my decision. It all lands on me. And it's like, well, it doesn't really, because I don't know this company, and now I'm having to work with them. What if my values don't line up with them? We didn't even have a values conversation. I had a value conversation with this guy, but there wasn't a coming together and a meeting of the minds around it. And it's like, how can I advise you best if I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
And honestly, could I have saved you money? Could I have actually worked in a different direction than we were talking, or added something, or done some kind of different thing to help you have more success with what we were already doing?
Yeah.
And that's the really big issue that I have when people go in on their own and they make decisions by discussing it with themselves.
Yep.
And
We get lost in our own head.
I've been a discusser with myself. And whenever I do it, and maybe other people are different, and maybe other people are way more enlightened, it's very possible. But, for me, when I'm discussing it with myself, I'm afraid of what's going to happen. I'm mitigating damage. I'm weighing the odds of how screwed up things are going to be if I do this. And then there's another part of me that's really excited because I'm going to be able to make a decision, and then I'm going to show that I'm in control. And
Yeah.
great, but who wants to be in control and something going down like that?
Yep. Yeah. So it's still, even as I hear that from you, it seems like very often those decisions are made more out of fear, like the fear out of losing control, the fear of not looking like you're the person, rather than that sense of strength that says, hey, I don't have to be the be all end all, but I actually can take advice. I actually need help. That takes strength to admit that. That takes courage to be able to say, I don't have the corner on the market of every thought that has to come into play here. And so there's a reason I brought on a trusted advisor to actually be someone to actually process things with, talk things through with, and get ideas, and have that opportunity to have that discussion before I go commit $80,000 that I don't have to some other organization and sign a contract that now I have 2 contracts for the same work with 2 different people that I didn't connect to each other or even introduce to each other yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think that we can do some good work together, but it's now that next level of, okay, now I got to get to know them, and that's okay. And now I got to get to be able to see what they're doing. But there was also, the reality of they're just repeating a lot of the processes that we already started.
Yep.
And they're coming in, second, and here's the reality. It is that guy's business, and it is that guy's decision. But does that mean that's a good idea to do it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's no law. He can't make a stupid decision, but it's still
Absolutely.
a stupid decision.
Absolutely. And when we go back to the you do you, honestly, I think that's more of a little jolt when people aren't in agreement, and it's almost kind of like you got to pick your battles. Oh, you do you. Oh, pick your battles. Oh, I'm not going to die on that hill. It's an avoidance.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an avoidance of, hey, you know what? I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm not really comfortable with what is going on here.
Yep. Yeah.
And I really don't think that this is going to be a good move forward. And getting into a conversation with somebody like that is agitating. It is, confrontational. But that's what we really need to do to grow.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and that's the reality too, right? You don't actually, again, if growth is part of life, and growing constantly and learning constantly is something that we need to do, otherwise we're just stagnant or going backward. You don't grow when things are comfortable and we're happy in the sense that people are pushing toward. You just need to be happy. Well, guess what? I grow when things are hard. I grow when I have to push in and figure things out is when I'm growing and learning. When I have to figure things out and go find answers and go find people that have answers is when I'm going to learn and grow.
Yeah.
I don't do the growing when it's, happy-go-lucky time.
Yeah, you choose to be happy. I don't think you can choose to be happy. I think happy as a result of following through with doing the next right thing and looking at things in gratitude and from optimism and faith. You will be happy, but seeking happiness is a great way to have a lot of problems.
Yeah. Great way to miss it altogether, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it seems if you aim at happiness, you miss it. But if you do the next right thing, you end up with happiness.
Yes. Yes. And the biggest next right thing is to run your ideas by someone
Yep.
and listen to what they say. And I mean, if you still want to, and I'm very, very open about, especially with the recovery community I work with and in businesses that I work with, it's, hey, let's talk about it. Let's put it all on the table. And then if you decide to make a really stupid decision, great. At least you talked about it.
Yep.
And in fact, I might even get on board with the really stupid decision.
Yep.
If you can convince me that it makes sense, I'm down. But what happens more often than not is when we put it out in the light of air, it's like, oh, I didn't know there was other options.
Right.
I didn't know that this was going to happen that way if I do that. I didn't know that duplicating services. I didn't know you were offering that. You didn't ask.
Right. Yep. Yep.
And this is the reason I think it's so important to really focus on communication in your business and to really get everything out on the table in that conflict world and entering the adventure of conflict. Hey, you know what? Whatever you got on your mind, say it out loud.
Yeah.
Oh, well, what about filtering? No, don't filter. Don't filter.
Right.
Be willing to listen to the feedback.
Yeah.
But when you filter, you're actually cutting off the things that people really need to hear to be able to understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And so for me, I would rather have somebody say something that's just totally, absolutely wrong, unfiltered, than somebody who got it really right, filtered, and left out most of the information.
Yeah.
It sounded good.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it sounded good all the way to bankruptcy court.
Ouch. Yeah. Yep. Well, and then so we got that in the leadership level, but we can back that up into, say, you're not the solo leader that can just say, hey, this is my deal, it's all about me. But then we back it off into the people. We still have people saying this who are in teams, who are either an executive team or even in another team in another situation. And here's another issue. You walk in there and you say, hey, you do you, or hey, it's all about me and my happiness. Well, where does that leave you on a team? It leaves you being the selfish one on a team who is not willing to be a team player. You will never be a team player if you're all about your happiness, your advancement, your joy, you being your truth. It's never going to do any good for the team.
So you talking about that reminds me of the 92, I think it's 92 Olympics, where they had, Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and all of the greats.
The original dream team.
And then they played a college team the first game, and the college team beat them. And it was because all of the greats decided they were going to be their own great. And they had 6 teams on the court.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All 5 teams of one person each, and then one team of the college team, and the college team beat them.
Yeah.
And it was a setup. And the coach of the Olympic team wanted that to happen in order for that team to realize that if they all need to be the star, there is none.
Yep.
There's loss in everybody being the star.
Yep.
But when everybody is the team player, the whole team becomes the star.
Yep.
And it was, like I said, it's a very dated story. And you go watch some stuff on the 92 Olympics with Jordan, or 94. I can't remember what it was. But Jordan and Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and watch that and see what they say about it. I think it was Kevin McHale was the coach. And just listen to what he was saying about how he saw what was going on, because I think that that's what we really have to look at with teams is everybody in it for themselves, and you have, a bunch of little silos banded together, or do you have a real cohesive team working for the betterment of the company, or the better of the team project, whatever it is. And it really does go right back to what you're saying is, well, you do you. Well, if each person does themselves, one, that sounds kind of weird. And two, they're really not working towards a vision of the team. They're not working for a vision of or the mission that the team has been brought together. That, hey, I'm really paying attention to my status.
Yep.
My status is kind of important.
Yeah, and we're not a team. We're a collection of individuals pursuing individual goals, and we're never going to get to collective goals and collective results. And we're never going to get sure, it's an overplayed word, but we're never going to get the synergy and the synergistic effects and results where we're greater together than we are apart. And so there's no reason to have a team if we're all going to just pursue individual goals. We're just a collection of individuals that we might as well go be a golf team that goes and plays golf and we add up our scores at the end, rather than think that we're a team that's actually working together toward anything.
Right.
Because we're really not.
And there's a real famous, at least in our circles, consultant named Alan Weiss, who talks about really understanding the difference between who you're working with. As consultants, we got to really pay attention to, are we working with a real team, or are we working with I forgot the word now, but shoot, it was just in my head, it disappeared.
Working group? Is that what you're?
A what?
Working group?
Working group, or a committee.
Okay.
A committee.
Yep.
Right. And a committee is not a team. A committee is people gathered together to make individual decisions about a certain thing based on their experience and based on their view of it. And so you bring something to a committee. If they all get into a teamwork thing, the problem is you can create a group think there, and then the committee chooses based on what the team makes a choice based on what the team thinks rather than a committee. So you actually lose some pushback in the committee. And so really understanding if you're working with a committee or a team, and understanding what the rules of the committee are, or how to work in a committee versus working with a team, because committees are really actually important to be able to push agendas in a different way than a team. A team is trying to move a project forward to completion. A committee is almost, in my opinion, really trying to see what the problems will come out if they keep going this way, and really trying to be the discerner of, are we moving in the right direction? And so it's kind of like the team is the gas, the committee is the brake, so to speak. And I think it's important to talk about that, because you do you in a committee might be okay.
Interesting. Yeah.
But you do you on a team is never going to get anywhere.
Right. Yeah. Well said. Well, and even, but even in the committee, I mean, the end game has to be for the welfare of.
Yes. Doesn't it fit with the vision? Am I doing me from my opinion, my experience, for the betterment of this situation, or am I doing it just because I want to, because I have the power, because I'm the chair of the committee?
Right. Yep.
Well, now we just fell into the whole humility trap.
Right. Or I'm feeling the power because I get to gum up the works, because anyone can veto anything, or anyone can stop it up or slow it up, or.
And you offended me, so no.
Right. Yeah. Oh, heck,
So
I've been in committees where all of a sudden, you've got someone that the committee has to interview or something, and they want to use that person as the pawn to make a statement to the rest of the committee. And so that poor person gets, used and abused for the sake of the rest of the committee.
And they didn't even know it.
Again, there's you doing you instead of you actually seeking the welfare of the committee and of even the person that's sitting in front of you.
Absolutely.
That selfishness just is destructive. It's destructive in the setting to the other people, and the project as a whole. And that's where it's like, no, this is the stupidest thing ever, to go forth and say, hey, I want to do my own thing. If you want to go do your own thing, then go found your own business and do it by yourself. That's about the only way. And even then, you're not going to work with other people, because if it's all about you, don't come asking me to work for me in my business, or to work with my business, because I don't want you.
Right.
And no one else is going to want you. They're going to figure out really quick, and you're going to go out of business.
It's very lonely in the idea of you doing you.
Yeah.
And I completely agree. And I see the memes all the time of these really wonderful at the glance, or they rhyme, or they have some kind of, um, good leaders, bad leaders. You know what? All I see is bias when somebody does that,
Yep.
because a really good leader can make some mistakes,
Yep.
but they're coachable. Or they might have had a really bad day in that situation. Well, they're a bad leader. No, they're not. They're a human being.
Yep. Exactly.
They're a human being.
Right.
And if they have a series of interactions that aren't going well, they probably need some help.
Yep.
Now, does that mean that they don't get reprimanded, or we're supposed to let it go and not confront it? No, that's what confrontation's all about. That's what conflict is all about. And that's what dialogue's all about. And I think that too many people are so scared that they're either going to get fired or that they're going to have some kind of adverse effect of conflict, that they won't even say, hey, man, it looks like you're really feeling aggressive today, or you're feeling really like the world's coming down on you, or it seems like you really aren't wanting to get along right now.
Yeah.
Or you don't need any help. Is that true? And asking those questions. And man, I'll tell you, I get into all kinds of confrontations that are very uncomfortable. But if I'm not in them, there's no change.
Yep. Exactly.
And it's not the idea when we get into these uncomfortable conversations, it's not the idea that they're arguments or fights. It's the fact that I know I'm going to a place that person is already protected, and that person is already guarded and does not want to be confronted around it.
Yep.
And so it's uncomfortable for me because I'm opening a wound.
Yep.
And if I'm opening a wound, it's not because I'm a jerk. It's because I care.
Yep. Yeah, you've got to be going there for that person's welfare.
Right? People don't receive it that way.
Yep.
And then what did you say? It's for their welfare? Is that?
Yeah, you've got to be going there for their welfare. You can't.
Absolutely.
It's not just I'm poking the wound because I want to poke the wound. It's not this is going to be fun. Watch, I'm going to poke here and see what happens.
Maybe I do, but
Right.
that might be how I do it.
Right.
I am.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's that is going to be helpful to that person, and helpful even to the team, and helpful to the organization. That if they stay all balled up and they stay hidden, this is not going to be helpful. This is going to be destructive. It's going to be hurtful. But if that thing comes out and they will work through it, there's going to be healing, and there's going to be growth, and there's going to be change. And so okay, I've got to stick my nose in there. It's going to get bapped a few times, but that's okay. I'm willing to get bapped a few times for the sake of that person and for their organization, so that this thing can get better, and even their productivity, their results, all this stuff is going to improve so much because this is freed up. This is opened up.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that when we really look at overall the idea that a person doing themselves in that way, you do you, that's an impossibility.
Yeah.
Unless you live at the top of a mountain and you do all of your, big game hunting with a spear that you found from a tree, and you made your own knife to cut it, and there at some point there's going to be you having to interact with other people.
Yep.
And anybody that we're interacting with is affected by us, and we're affected by them.
Yep. Absolutely.
And until we realize that that's where we got to stop saying stuff like you be you, or I'm the only one that's affected by this. No, you're not.
No.
And in fact, even people that you have no idea know what's going on, and they don't know what's going on, is affected by what you're doing.
Yep.
All of the possibilities of prospects that you had before will be affected by your decisions. And that's not to make it so we're weighed so far down that we can't make decisions, but it's about inclusion And I'm not talking about diversity inclusion, but I'm talking about inclusion of the people who are making decisions and who are in your circle of communication that need to be brought in for those conversations.
Yep. And know who your stakeholders are, right? Know who the people who,
Absolutely.
you need to weigh in, and consider that well. I mean, don't just go willy-nilly to everyone in the street and ask their opinion, but get those key stakeholders, get those key people, seek wise counsel, and get the wise counsel, and get the people who know the situation and see it from different angles and perspectives than you do, and get all that wisdom. Then make the wise decision. Don't just hurry decisions, but take the time. And I think we've said early on, there's probably a way in which there's a push against something that this comes out of, right? There's probably a push toward wanting boundaries, wanting good stuff. And there's a good conversation around boundaries to be had, to say, hey, I want to make sure that, where I end and other people begin is an important place to have.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely important. But let's not go too far to then make that boundary to the point where no one else exists. You can't go there either.
Well said.
Or you're in a lonely place, and you're also at a place where your ego is so big that no one else can get in the room. And we need some humility that says, guess what? I'm willing to lay myself aside.
Slide around you.
Right. It takes just as big of a person to be able to say, humility says, hey, you know what? I'm going to set myself aside for the welfare of the team. It doesn't say I'm less than. It says I'm willing to, with who I am, set myself down for a moment to hear from other people. It's not lessening myself. It's actually just saying I'm setting myself aside to hear, to take in. And so it's not I'm not deprecating myself.
Yeah.
I'm actually just willing to hear, willing to not boost my self-importance to a point where shouldn't be at.
Absolutely. And like you said before, it's that fear of being inferior that people boost their importance. And it's the fear of being embarrassed that they're not asking for help. And so, we all make mistakes. We all have a point of view, and we all feel inferior at times.
Yeah.
And so in that statement that we all do it, we're all equal.
Yeah. Yep.
But one of the things in recovery that I really loved is like, we're all crazy. This is a saying that they have. We're all crazy, just not on the same day.
Yep.
And so that's the idea that I work from. Is like, look, I know I'm just as crazy as everybody else. I know I make mistakes, and I know that there is no perfection right here. My ego likes to think so, but there is none, and that's the reality.
Right.
However, when they're not my problems, I'm not frightened, and I can be very, very supportive and very, very instructive and very, very suggestion-based. Let's look at these things. If it's my stuff, I need help.
Yeah.
As soon as I get freaked out, I need help.
Yep.
And I learned a long time ago that my life turns into a flaming dumpster if I'm making my decisions when I'm scared.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what the decision is. It could be what I'm supposed to eat.
Right.
And then 2 bags of chips and a couple of burgers later, I'm like, that was probably a bad idea.
Yeah. Well, and it's counterintuitive, but those are the times I need people more, not less.
Those are the times we need each other the most, is when we're scared.
Yeah. And it's also the other counterintuitive piece that I thought of while you were talking was it takes a lot of confidence to be humble.
Absolutely. I was thinking back how frightening. I grew up with a dad who's very meticulous with what he did, and I love my dad. I had the best relationship with him when he passed away, and we worked really hard on it for about 15 years before he passed away. And he admitted where he made some mistakes in the relationship. I admitted where I made some mistakes, and honestly, I made the most mistakes because I thought he didn't like me, and I thought I was a disappointment, and he never said any of that. But I believed it because I told myself that, and I worked off of that model for years of him thinking that I'm not good enough, him thinking that I'm a disappointment, And so I continued under this pressure before that 15 years where we, put the relationship back together. I continued to rail against him in some ways and then try to prove myself in other ways without him ever knowing that I believe that.
Yeah.
And it was such a shame. I felt shame, but it was a shame that I didn't go to him and talk to him about that, because I could have had probably about another 15 years, 20 years relationship with him if I just came clean in the beginning and say, I'm really scared that you are disappointed in me. And I didn't do that because I didn't have the belief in myself. I didn't have the confidence in myself to be able to put myself out there and say, look, I think you are really disappointed. I think that you really don't like me.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to change me to make you like me. And that's the conversation we had in 2002, I think it was. And the funny thing is when we had that conversation, he goes, I thought you didn't like me. And I was disappointed.
Conversations happen, right?
Right. And I was disappointed in myself. And this is me when I graduated from my undergrad psychology program that I put myself through because I didn't allow them to help me. Right.
Wow.
And we're both at a kitchen table of my cousin crying. And he's saying, I thought you didn't like me. Wow. I thought I failed you as a father. And it's like, I'm getting all misty here, but the funny thing is that's the communication that if it happened 10 years before, one, I was not able to have it 10 years before, but if it did, we would have had another 10 years, 15 years of that relationship. And thank God that I was able to have that at 2002. And then the relationship until he passed away was 2015, 2016, something like that. But we had the relationship that was very, very, very close since that time.
Wow.
And I use that in my mind as whenever I have conflict, I need to go to that person and tell them that what I'm afraid of in the relationship.
Yeah.
And then invariably, absolutely every time they admit that they have the same fears.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like, no, wow. I had no idea. We're equal.
Right.
Oh.
There we go. Business leaders, business owners, partners in business. Get the assumptions out there. That's what a great example to translate that into the business world of, hey, here's how often are we at odds with one another over something so stupid of a lie in our own head that we're believing about the other person, about their intentions or about what they're feeling or what they're thinking. That's not true. And they're thinking the same thing and it's not true. And if we would just get it out there, it would be resolved in a heartbeat. And we would be back on the same page, back where we should be going forward. And our productivity, our results, our relationship in particular would be at just this amazing place again.
And I think the key pieces that are really important is I never talked about what he did wrong. I talked about what I was feeling and how I told myself about what it meant.
Yeah.
And in fact, I know it wasn't you, but I told myself this.
Yep.
I know you weren't doing this or that, but I told myself this. I believed this.
Yep.
And that wasn't fair to you. And that's the conversation that we had.
Yeah.
And it was like welding two people together after that.
Wow.
I couldn't get rid of the guy.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And if it's all about you, you can't get out of your own head, people. You
No.
can't, because you can't have those conversations.
Absolutely.
You can't be free to have those relationships. And
so,
life is made deeper and better by the relationships. Businesses are made better by the teams and partnerships.
And it all starts with communication. It all starts with being honest about what you're feeling.
Yep.
And all about what you're thinking that might not be true.
Yep. And so while we enter this difficult situation and difficult topic that would be difficult to so many in our society, but because we're confronting something that's become just assumed in many ways, We do it because it's important for people to know, hey, you know what? It can't be all about you, or you're hurting yourself.
Absolutely.
And so don't make it all about you. Set yourself aside and enter in with other people and enjoy the beauty that comes out of that.
Well, and get the other people's perspectives.
Yeah.
The one thing that I've seen more often than anything is if you ask somebody's perspective, they automatically feel like they matter.
Yep.
And they buy in more.
Yep. Employee engagement 101, huh?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep.
So
Wow.
I think we've kind of talked this one out.
I think we have. Good stuff. Well, there you go, people. We would love your feedback. We would love your input. If you think we're nuts, let us know. If you think this has been good, let us know. If you've got questions, throw them out there. We'd love to hear from you. So we look forward to seeing you next time, same place, next week, Monday. We'll see you then. Have a great day.